Hello and welcome to the stream. If you're watching, then please leave a comment to introduce yourself. Just leave your comment with your name. I'll wait here for someone to leave a comment. I hope you can hear me. Anyone watching, please leave a comment. Hello. Got a comment there from Giath. Welcome to the live stream. Okay, so I know that there are people watching. That's good. Hello, Elevik. How do you do? Okay, so today I'm going to be looking at some English writing that was sent to me by a couple of my students. Okay, so let's take a look at the first piece of writing. Okay, so this is a submission from someone called Mai, a young lady from Vietnam. Okay, so you can see the introduction here. Dear Mr. Colt, I am Mai Chan from Vietnam. I'm preparing for the IELTS test at the end of this year. Okay, so that's all fine. Okay, but let's read on and see if there are any problems. I am really happy reading your email. Said that you will review my pronunciation and grammar for free. It made my day, actually. Okay, so there's one mistake here, which we're going to see again in the piece of writing that she actually submitted. Okay, so just look at this part here. I hope you can see that. Let me just underline that. Can you see that? Yes. Okay. Hold on a second. There. So, I am really happy reading your email. Said that you will review my pronunciation and grammar for free. Okay, we've also got a spelling mistake here. Okay. Now, if you're watching, here's some advice. If you're using a word processor like Microsoft Word or Google Documents, something like that, and you're writing in English, make sure that you set the spell check function to English. Okay? Make sure you set the spell check function to English, because then any English words that you spell incorrectly will be corrected by the spell check. Okay, that's what native English speakers use. That's what we do. I do that, okay? Because it's completely normal and understandable to make a spelling mistake, okay? So, I'm really happy reading your email. Said that you will review my pronunciation and grammar for free. It made my day, actually. Good, glad to hear it. Okay. So, here is my writing that summarizes some passages of All Summer in a Day by Ray Bradbury. Okay, so I looked this up. Ray Bradbury is a writer, and he wrote a sort of a poem or a short story called All Summer in a Day. Okay, and what Mai has done here is she's written a summary of that story. Okay, this is a very good exercise to do to improve your writing. Okay, so let's read on. And it says here, thank you so much for your reviewing. Okay, for your reviewing. We'll come back to that maybe. Okay, so let's get into the main thing. It had been raining for 7 years since the first appearance of the sun on the planet Venus. Okay, so this is correct. I've checked the original text, the story that she was referring to, this one. Okay, and that is correct. Now, there's one thing here, which is this, it'd. Now, we don't usually contract it had in this way, okay? Certainly people will say it'd, like that, as opposed to it had been raining, okay, that's fine. But it's not normal to write it in this way, so it would be better just to write it had, okay? Also, in written English, in what's called prose, which just means written English, basically, as opposed to poetry, in written prose, you should not really use contractions, okay? Contractions are an element of spoken English, okay? We use contractions in spoken English, and when you see a contraction written, for example, if you see something like I've, okay, I apostrophe VE, when you see something like I've, that's just to capture something that someone said. So, for example, if you're, let's say you're reading a novel, okay, you're reading a book, a piece of fiction, and in the story it says something like, and then John said, I'm going to be late for work. Now there you're going to see a contraction, I apostrophe M, I'm going to be late for work, because the writer is trying to capture the way in which this character is speaking, okay? And if you're writing casual English, you're writing a text, or you're writing a work email or something like that, which isn't very important, then it's okay to use contractions. Native English speakers use contractions in writing. I do it, okay? Because we're just thinking, and then we're writing what we're thinking. However, in a formal piece of writing like this, something which is being written for a test or something like that, then I would recommend don't use contractions, okay? So just write it in full English. So, it had been raining. Now notice here again, we've got a spelling mistake. So it should be raining, you see? So it had been raining for 7 years since the first appearance of the sun on the planet Venus. Now, I read the story, and this is correct. However, the way you've written it, Mai, is a little bit confusing, because you said the first appearance. The first appearance. I think it would be better if you had written the last appearance. Okay? That means, in other words, the most recent. Okay? The most recent appearance. So the last time that the sun appeared on Venus was 7 years ago. And since then, it's been raining constantly. Okay? Very bad weather. Okay? But other than that, very good. So it had been raining for 7 years since the last appearance of the sun on the planet Venus. You see, if you say the first appearance, it's a bit confusing, because it makes it sound like it's the first time that the sun has ever appeared on Venus. But of course, that's not true. You're talking about the most recent time, but of course, Venus has existed for millions of years. And so the sun has appeared on Venus probably millions of times before. But the most recent time was 7 years ago, okay? So for those of you who are wondering, in this story that Mai is summarizing, this story called All Summer in a Day, this story is about, it's a sort of science fiction story in which there's a sort of human colony on the planet Venus. And the story is about how there are these young children, and for their whole life, they've never seen any other kind of weather other than rain, because it rains constantly on Venus. So this story is about these little children living and growing up in this environment in which it just rains constantly. And so just seeing the sun just for a few minutes is like an amazing, rare thing that people have to see, you know. And so the children can't even remember the last time it happened because it was 7 years ago, and they're only 9 at the moment. Okay, so it had been raining for 7 years since the last appearance of the sun on the planet Venus. Okay. At that time, all of the children here in the rocket was just 2 years old. Okay, so we've got a basic mistake here. Can anyone see what the mistake is here? Please leave a comment if you can see the mistake here. Okay, I'm going to wait for a second. Please leave a comment if you've got any idea what the mistake is. I hope you're there. If you're there, then please leave a comment if you can see the mistake that you've made here. I'm just going to underline this. Okay, I hope everyone can see and hear me okay. Please leave a comment if you've got any idea what the mistake is here. It's a pretty basic English mistake. I'm just going to wait for someone to leave a comment. At that time, all of the children here in the rocket was just 2 years old. Right, exactly. So Elevik has left the comment were. So, of course, all of the children is plural, not singular. At that time, all of the children here in the rocket were just 2 years old. Okay, so if you're listening, just be careful about things like that. Okay, that's a basic mistake. So, but little things like that are going to bring down the overall quality of your English. Okay, so be careful about that. At that time, all of the children here in the rocket were just 2 years old. Now, when you say here in the rocket, that sounds a little bit strange because it makes it sound, it makes it sound like you are in a rocket as you write. You see? So I might say, for example, something like, let's see. So I might say something like, here in my studio, the air conditioning is on. Okay? Or let's say I'm living in a certain country. I might say, here in Spain. If I'm living in Spain, I might say, here in Spain, the weather is very good because I am here in Spain. So when you say here in the rocket, it sounds a little bit strange because it makes it sound like you yourself are in the rocket, but of course you're not. You're just summarizing the story. So maybe better to write there in the rocket. At that time, all of the children there in the rocket. Or indeed, just say in the rocket. Okay? You don't really need to say here or there. You could just say in the rocket. Okay? So, at that time, all of the children in the rocket were just 2 years old. Too little to remember the heat of the sun, and how it looked like. Okay, so a couple of little mistakes there, which we'll come back to. I'm just going to look at some of the comments here. So, were was correct. It had been, not it had be. Maybe I missed that. Let me see. Oh, yes, you're quite right. Yes, it had been. Okay, it had been raining. Okay, that's important. I didn't notice that, actually. Yes, it had been raining. Okay, now, I actually used to live in Vietnam, believe it or not. Mai is Vietnamese, just to remind you. So I used to live in Vietnam, and I've had some friends who are Vietnamese. And I think this is quite a common mistake, something like it had be raining, because been and be sound very similar. So in your mind, you're thinking it had be raining because it sounds similar, but it has to be been. It can't be it had be. It must be been. It had been raining. Okay, so thank you for that comment. That's very helpful. Who was that? That was Irina. So thank you, Irina, for that comment. Oh, no, sorry, my mistake. Oh, no, yes, there were 2 people who made that comment. Yes, Julio and Irina both made that comment. Yes, so thank you for that. I missed that. Okay, so let's get back to where we were. So at that time, all of the children here in the rocket were just 2 years old, too little to remember the warm. Okay, so leave a comment if you know what the mistake here is. Okay, please leave a comment if you know what the mistake with that word is. Sorry, you can't see, can you? So, 1 second. Hold on a second. Can you see that? Just give me a second. I'm trying to deal with this technology. Here we are. Okay. So, at that time, all of the children here in the rocket were just 2 years old, too little to remember the warm. Okay, so what's the mistake here? Please leave a comment if you have an idea what the mistake here is with the word warm. Too little to remember the warm, the heat of the sun, and how it looked like. Leave a comment if you've got any idea what the mistake is here. Still waiting for a comment. Someone leave a comment. At that time, all the children were just 2 years old, too little to remember the warm, the heat of the sun, and how it looked like. Anyone got any ideas what the mistake is there? Well, so Julio has written worm. Well, interesting theory. But I think you're a bit confused there, Julio, because, right. So Julio, you've written worm, W-O-R-M. The word worm refers to a kind of animal, okay? A little wriggly animal, okay? So this is a worm, okay? W-O-R-M, that's a worm, okay? But Elevik has the right answer, which is warmth, okay? So if you're listening, warm, the word that you've written, is an adjective, okay? The weather is warm today, okay? My cat is warm, okay? But the word you're looking for is warmth, okay? Warmth is a noun, and it refers to the quality of being warm, okay? Warmness, in a way, okay? So, where are we? So, yes. So this should be warmth, okay? So at that time, the children here in the rocket were just 2 years old, too little to remember the warmth, the heat of the sun, and how it looked like. Okay, that's pretty good. But here we have another mistake. Now, this is a very common mistake. So I'll be impressed if anyone is able to see what the mistake is here. What is the mistake? Someone leave a comment if you've got some idea what the mistake is. The heat of the sun and how it looked like. Leave a comment if you've got any idea what the mistake might be. At that time, all the children were just 2 years old, too little to remember the warmth, the heat of the sun, and how it looked like. Someone leave a comment. Anyone got any idea what the mistake is here? No? Okay, so apparently no one's sure what the mistake is. So this is important, okay, because this is something that comes up all the time in everyday English. So let me explain this. Elvic has a comment. What it looked like. Yes, what it looked like as opposed to how it looked like. That is correct, Elvic. So let's talk about this for a second. There are two ways of saying kind of the same thing, really. So I could say, for example, when my meal came, I didn't like how it looked. Okay, the meal arrived, the waiter comes, brings my meal, and I look at it and think, oh, I don't like that. So I didn't like how it looked. Because how in this context means the way it looked. I didn't like the way it looked, okay? But if you're using like, well, that's different. So I might say, for example, I might say, my dog looks like a teddy bear. Okay, my dog looks like a teddy bear. Now, I'm literally saying he looks similar to a teddy bear. Okay, now teddy bear is a thing. It's a thing. Okay, so the teddy bear is what my dog looks like. Okay, I'm comparing my dog to something else. He looks like this thing, a teddy bear. So if you were to say to me, what does your dog look like? I would say a teddy bear, because a teddy bear is the thing that he looks like. Okay, he looks like a teddy bear. But with how, that's different. Okay, because how does not refer to a thing. If I, what is a teddy bear? A teddy bear is a toy bear. What is a teddy bear? You wouldn't say, how is a teddy bear? No. Okay, so how is more, or means something like in what way. So if I might say, how, I might say, how are you? If I say, how are you, I'm asking about if you're happy or sad or healthy or sick or something like that. How are you? So yes, you should say how it looked or what it looked like. How it looked or what it looked like. You have a choice, because in this context, either one is fine. They mean the same thing. So you could say how it looked. Okay. They were too little to remember the warmth, the heat of the sun, and how it looked. How the sun looked. Or, as Elvic said, you can write, where are we? Yes, the heat of the sun and what it looked like. What it looked like. Okay, this is the key word, what. Okay, so what does the sun look like? It looks like a big orange in the sky. That's what it looks like. Okay. Okay. So, but there is an exception. Again, we've got a spelling error here. There should be a C there. Okay. But there is an exception. Margot, this is another spelling error. So be careful about that. Okay. A little girl was sent from Earth at the age of 4. Okay. So you remember at the beginning, I said we had a mistake here. I'm really happy. Reading your email said that you will review my pronunciation and grammar for free. Okay? Your email said. Now, what you've done here is you've tried to say something in two different ways simultaneously. This is a very common mistake. In fact, almost every mistake that learners of English make comes down to trying to say one thing in two different ways at the same time. Okay? Because usually there's more than one way to express a certain idea. Okay? And often learners of English will try to combine them both because maybe they're not sure, or maybe it's because you're hoping that if you just combine everything, then you'll get the message across because you won't be leaving anything out. Okay, so it's like you're just adding everything into the mixture. Okay, and in fact, the previous mistake is an example of that. So if we look at the mistake we were just talking about, it was, let's see, what it looked like. So one way is saying how it looked. The other way is saying what it looked like. But you can't combine them into one thing and say how it looked like. You can't do that, okay? So here we've got a similar problem. So if we scroll up. So you see, you could say, I'm really happy reading your email. Okay, let's put a full stop there. I'm really happy reading your email. Full stop. That's a perfectly correct sentence. Or we could take this as the start of a new sentence. Okay. Look at this. Your email said that you will review my pronunciation and grammar for free. So again, this is a perfectly correct sentence. Okay. Your email said that you will review my pronunciation and grammar for free. That is correct. That is grammatically correct. Okay. But what you've tried to do, Mai, is put these two things together. You see, what you're trying to say is, I'm really happy reading your email, and then you need to connect, somehow you need to connect this part to this part. Okay, now let's see if someone can find the answer to this. So leave a comment if you've got an idea about how we can correct this. We want to keep it as one sentence. So we want to keep this whole thing as one sentence. Okay. So we want this to all be one sentence, but we need to correct this mistake. If someone can give me the answer, I'll be very impressed. So I'm going to wait for a moment. Now, I see a comment there from Irina regarding the thing that we were talking about before, as in what it looked like. Now, Irina, if you're listening, this is very important, okay? Let's see. So, if you say, what did it look like? What did it look like? The problem is that what did it look like is a question. What did it look like? You see? But here we're not asking a question. There's no question here. At that time, all the children were just 2 years old, too little to remember the warmth, the heat of the sun, and what it, i.e. the sun, looked like. There's no question here. And the construction, what did it look like? Okay. What did it look like? This is a question. What did it look like? Where did you go? What did you eat? Who did you meet? Okay. There's no question here. There's no question mark. You see, there's no question mark here. Just a full stop. Okay. So it should not be what did. Okay. Anyway, so has anyone got any idea? Right, good. Excellent. Okay, so Julio, you've put the word which, right. Exactly. We're on the right track. Let's take a look see if that works. Where are we? So, so I'm really happy reading your email, which said that you will review my pronunciation and grammar for free. Okay, brilliant. Problem solved. Okay, so if you're listening, you've got to start using words like which. Okay, you could have used the word that. Okay, same thing, doesn't really matter. Okay, I'm really happy reading your email that said that you will review my pronunciation. Okay, that or which is good. Okay, and so we've got the same mistake down here, but there is an exception. Margot, a little girl, was sent from Earth at the age of 4. So what's the mistake here? Someone leave a comment. Someone leave a comment and tell me how I can correct this. But there is an exception. Margot, a little girl, was sent from Earth at the age of 4. So it's basically the same mistake that we just talked about, but we're going to correct it in a slightly different way. Someone leave a comment with the answer. Someone leave a comment. Who? Right, exactly. Who? Now, Elevik, you made a comment about the previous mistake. You said, add a that, delete the original that. Now, I see what you mean, because it says, I'm really happy reading your email. One second. Yeah, I'm really happy reading your email, which said that. Okay, so we've got another that here. But you don't actually need to delete that. Okay, you have an option. You don't actually need it here, but you don't need to delete it either. So you could say, I'm really happy reading your email, which said you will review my pronunciation and grammar for free. But you can also keep it in. I'm really happy reading your email, which said that. Okay, and you can use that here as well. You could say that said that. Okay, that's perfectly correct, but the second that is optional. Okay, so good comment there. But yes, here basically the same thing, except that we're going to use the word who. But there is an exception. Margot, a little girl who was sent from Earth at the age of 4. Okay, so the other children, they were just 2 years old the last time that the sun came out. And 2 is very small, so they can't remember. But this girl, Margot, is a couple of years older, and so maybe she can just about remember the last time that the sun came out, because she was 4 at the time. Okay, so this sentence is good, but there is an exception. Margot, a little girl who was sent from Earth at the age of 4. That's very good. Okay. Margot is a very frail girl with a fresh pair of blue eye and a yellow hair. Now, the word frail, you might not know what this word means. The word frail means something like weak. Okay, weak and maybe prone to illness. So maybe you remember when you were children, maybe there were some children at your school who were always getting sick, who were very weakly and not good at physical things, were always crying. I remember some boys like that. Often we'll describe someone who's very old as being frail. Okay, your grandmother who might need to use a wheelchair, something like that. Like this. Okay, very frail and weak. Okay, delicate, something like that. Okay, so a delicate, frail little girl, maybe she's prone to sickness or something like that. Okay, so Margot is a very frail girl with a fresh pair of blue eye. Now, I'm sure you can all see the mistake there. Someone leave a comment to highlight the mistake. Someone leave a comment. Yes, exactly, Julio. Fragile is a pretty good synonym for frail. Of course, fragile can be used to talk about something like, I don't know, a wine glass. So it can be fragile, you can break it. But frail is used specifically to talk about people. Okay, so what was the mistake here? It says, Margot is a very frail girl with a fresh pair of blue eye. Now, pretty obvious mistake there. So someone who hasn't left a comment so far, please leave a comment with the answer. Okay, someone new, someone who hasn't left a comment yet. Assuming there's anyone else watching, please leave a comment. Pretty easy one, this. A fresh pair of blue eye. What's the mistake? Margot is a very frail girl with a fresh pair of blue eye and a yellow hair. With no A. Well, actually, you see the noun here, you see the article A, the article corresponds with a particular vowel in that sentence. And the vowel in this sentence is pair. P-A-I-R, pair. Okay? We're talking about a pair of blue eyes. Fresh, the word fresh is just an adjective. Okay? So, for example, you know, I might say a blue car. Clearly, blue is just an adjective. Really, what we're talking about is a car. It's a car that is blue. A car that is blue. Okay? So, Margot is a frail girl with a pair of fresh blue eyes. So, fresh is an adjective being used to describe her eyes. Okay? And pair, well, a pair is a singular countable noun. One pair, two pairs, three pairs. Okay, think about pairs of shoes. He was wearing a nice pair of shoes. Okay, and yes, okay, so Irina, eyes. Of course, that's the answer, isn't it? Margot is a very frail girl with a fresh pair of blue eyes. Okay, two eyes in a pair. Okay. Ah, okay. Maybe when you were talking about you were talking about this part. Okay, I think that's what you meant, isn't it? So yes, a yellow hair is obviously wrong because hair is not a countable noun, or at least in this context, it's not. Okay, well, actually, no, it is countable, but it's plural. Yeah, is it countable or is it uncountable or countable? I'm not sure exactly, but it's the point is we're not talking about a single hair. We're talking about all of the hair on her head. Okay, so where are we? Right, so Margot is a very frail girl with yellow hair. Okay, not a yellow hair, yellow hair. If you say a yellow hair, it makes it sound like she has one hair, one yellow hair. Okay? So, no, she has yellow hair. Good. Yeah, so hair in this context, I suppose, is uncountable. It's sort of like the substance, the material of hair. Okay? So, anyway, let's read on. So, gradually, she realized she was different from all the children here. So again, here is problematic. I think better to say there. Okay. Now let's think about the tense. Okay, it had been raining at that time. Yeah, so we're talking in the past tense. Okay, that's okay. So, if you're listening, you've written this summary in the past tense. Gradually, she realized she was different. Okay, now that's fine. There's no big problem there. I'm quite happy for you to do that. But I would advise you in future, if you're writing a story or you're summarizing a story, use the present tense. Okay? This is how we tell stories. Okay? So for example, let's imagine imagine you're talking to a friend and you're telling them about a funny thing that happened to you. So you this is what I would do if I'm in the pub having a few drinks with my friend and I want to tell him something funny that happened to me. Okay, so I might say something like this. Last week, I'm in the pub. I'm in the pub. You see, I'm using the present tense. Even though I said last week, so I'm telling a story about last week, I'm going to use the present tense. Last week, I'm in the pub, and a man approaches me. Not a man approached me. A man approaches me. Again, present tense. And he says to me, would you like to buy some heroin? Okay? And la 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 la. So I'm talking the present tense. Now, the reason we do this is because it's more engaging for the listener. Okay? Now, I could use a past tense there because I am telling a story about the past. Okay, that would be grammatically fine. I could say last week I was in the pub and a man approached me and he asked me if I wanted to buy some heroin. Okay, that's fine. But often we'll tell a story using the present tense because it makes the listener feel like they're in the middle of this story, like it's happening to them right now. Okay, and here with what you've written, Mai, this is not actually real. This is not a real story about something that actually happened in the past. This is just a fantasy. It's fiction. Okay, so it's not really in the past because it hasn't really happened. It's just in your imagination, you see. So here, particularly, it's not necessary to use the past tense. You can use the present tense because really the story doesn't have any time. It's not real. And also, by using the present tense, it's going to be a little bit more engaging for the listener. Okay, I hope that's clear. So let's see. But there is an exception. So here, yes, here you've used the present tense, I note. You see, you didn't say there was an exception. Sorry, can't see that. But there is an exception. You see, Margot, little girl who was sent from Earth at the age of 4. Okay. Margot is. So again, here you've used the present tense. So that's fine. But here you've changed to the past tense. You see, so now it's a bit confusing. But I suppose maybe you did that because you want to say that she realized before the situation that you were describing at the beginning, because you set the scene by describing this situation. Okay, so it's been raining. So now maybe you're going back in time. I don't know. It's not entirely clear. But anyway, just remember that you can use the present tense to tell stories. So gradually she realized she was different from all of the children there. Yeah, I think you should use the present tense. Gradually she realizes, because presumably, you've used the word gradually, so presumably this is something that happens during the course of the story. She gradually, from the beginning of the story to the end of the story, she realizes that she's different from all of the children there. She still remember clearly that the sun like a penny. Now here's a spelling mistake again. Penny is double N. Its heat is like a fire in the stove. Okay. So again, we've got some basic mistakes here, Mai. So be careful about this because these are mistakes that you should not be making. These are silly, basic mistakes. So who can tell me what the mistake is here? She still remember. Someone leave a comment. Someone leave a comment telling me what the mistake is here. She still remember clearly that the sun, and also we've got another mistake after that, that the sun like a penny. She still remember, and then that the sun like a penny. We've got two mistakes there. Someone leave a comment and tell me what the mistake is. She still remember clearly that the sun like a penny. Someone leave a comment. She still remember clearly that the sun like a penny. Yeah, remembers. Good. So she still remembers clearly. She still remembers clearly that the sun like a penny. The sun is like, exactly. Exactly. So, she still remembers clearly that the sun is like a penny. Its heat is like a fire in the stove. A fire in the stove. Okay, that's acceptable. So a stove is basically an oven for cooking your food in, or maybe for heating your house with. Okay, it's basically an oven. Its heat is like a fire in the stove. Well, it might be better just to write its heat is like a stove, or its heat is like a fire, or maybe better to write the as opposed to a. Its heat is like the fire in the stove, because what you're really talking about is the stove's fire. That's what you mean, isn't it? She still remembers clearly that the sun is like a penny. Its heat is like the stove's fire. So the fire in the stove. Okay. If you say a fire in the stove, it makes the fire and the stove seem rather separate from each other. Okay, it's a bit difficult to explain, but it sounds more natural to say the fire in the stove, or maybe the fire of the stove. Okay, because it's the stove's fire. Okay, or just say its heat is like the stove. I don't know, but it's not a big problem. It's not a big problem. The sun is like a penny. Its heat is like a fire in the stove. So this is okay. It's clear what you mean. It's like a penny because it's it seems about the same size as a penny. It's a round object in the sky. Of course, this is perhaps what you might call a mixed metaphor. Okay. So this is a rather advanced point that I'm making here. So a mixed metaphor is where you use two different metaphors together at the same time. So you're describing the sun as being like a penny, but you're also saying that it's hot. The problem is that pennies, of course, are not hot. Okay. So it's a bit of a mixed image there, but it's acceptable because you have obviously said that its heat is like a fire. So you're not saying that a penny is hot, but just be careful about that kind of thing. Okay. But basically, the most important thing here is just remembers and is. Okay. Anyway, let's move on. So in contract, all remembrance about the sun was vague. Okay. With the children. Okay. Was vague with the children, and all went away together with the endless shaking down of clear bead necklaces upon the roof like the rain washed it all out. Okay, I think you've gone a little crazy here. Okay, this sentence, because it's all one sentence, doesn't really make any sense. Okay, I think maybe you're getting a bit tired by this point and your English is starting to deteriorate because everything you've done so far has made sense. All of this is good. You know, you've got some grammatical mistakes, but it all makes sense. It's all pretty well written. But here, it gets really quite difficult to understand. So, firstly, contract. So, of course, a contract is a written document. So, for example, if you join a company, you'll have an employment contract. If you rent an apartment, a flat, you're going to have a tenancy agreement, which is a kind of contract. Even a marriage is a kind of contract, okay? Note that contract is a singular countable noun, okay? One contract, two contracts, three contracts. These are countable things. So whenever you have a singular countable noun, whenever you have one thing, you need an article, okay? So it must be in the contract, okay? However, this is the first time, that you've mentioned any contract. So for me as the reader, it's a little unclear. What contract are you talking about? Okay, you need to be a bit clearer about that. So in the contract, whatever contract that is, all remembrance about the son was vague with the children. All remembrance about the son was vague with the children. Okay, I'm not sure what this has got to do with any contract, but if we forget about this contract part and just look at this, all remembrance about the son was vague with the children. Okay, I mean, yeah, that makes sense. That's grammatically correct. You're basically repeating what you said before. The children were too little to remember the warmth of the sun, etc. Okay? So all remembrance about the sun was vague with the children, and all went away together with the endless shaking down of clear bead necklaces upon the roof, like the rain washed all it out. Okay, this doesn't make any sense. I think what's happened, okay, I'm seeing a comment from Julio. It says, in contrast. Right. You know what, Julio? I think you're right. I think that's what she meant. Okay, so if you meant in contrast, you see the problem. If you make a silly mistake, a spelling mistake, and you write in contract, that's just one letter that's different. Then for me as the reader, it's very confusing because I'm thinking, oh, there must be some contract that you haven't told me about. What is this contract that you're talking about? Okay, so thank you very much for that comment, Julio. Okay, I didn't notice that, but I think you're right. I think that's what she meant. Okay, sorry, maybe you can't see. Yes, in contrast, exactly. So in contrast, because we've been talking about this other little girl, Margot. Okay, so Margot is older. Margot was 4 the last time the sun came out. So now she's 11, I think. And she gradually realizes she's different from the children. She still remembers clearly that the sun is like a penny. In contrast, all remembrance about the sun was vague with the children. So the other children, yeah, you might want to put here other children, okay, just to make it clear. So in contrast, all remembrance about the sun was vague with the children, the other children, and all went away together. Now, this part, the endless shaking down of clear bead necklaces upon the roof, like the rain, washed all it out. So this is not very clear, I think what's happened is that you've taken some of the poetic language from the original text, okay, from the original piece of text by Ray Bradbury, or whatever his name was. And yes, Ray Bradbury. You've taken some of his poetic language and you've just sort of copied it. You've got to be very careful about that, okay? I think what you've done is we have a saying in English, which is to To bite off more than you can chew. Okay. Bite off more than you can chew. Okay. So literally to take a big bite, but you can't chew it because it's too big to fit in your mouth. Okay. So be careful about that. Okay. Yeah, this part you really just need to rewrite it. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, let's move on. One day the rain slackened. Okay. You don't need this comma. Okay, I often see when people write in English, and actually this is true even for native English speakers. Even native English speakers do this. Often people use too many commas. You really don't need a comma there. You can, it's okay. It's not a mistake, but it's not necessary. One day the rain slackened. Margot believed, again, spelling mistake. Margot believed it was the day she could meet the sun again. Okay, Margot believed it was the day she could meet the sun again. Fair enough. That sounds all right. She missed it. She'd been waiting it for a long time. She yearned to meet her son. Okay. Yes, again, her son. This sounds quite poetic. I assume that you've copied this from the original text. So just be careful about that. If you're summarizing something, be careful about the more poetic elements of the thing that you're summarizing. Okay, your summary should not be overly poetic. Okay, especially if your English is, you know, not super advanced. Okay, because you'll end up biting off more than you can chew. So what's a mistake here? Someone leave a comment. Someone leave a comment. She missed it. She'd been waiting it. She'd been waiting it for a long time. What's the mistake here? Someone leave a comment. Hello, Carlos. Thank you for your comment. I'm going to get to your text in a minute. Okay, but first we're just looking at my text. So what's the mistake? It says... Oh, I've lost it. Yeah, she'd been waiting it for a long time. What's the mistake there? Someone leave a comment. She'd been waiting it a long time. Someone leave a comment. She missed it. She'd been waiting it for a long time. She yearned to meet her son. Someone leave a comment if you know what the mistake is. She'd been waiting it. She missed it. She'd been waiting it. Well, no one's left a comment. So the answer is that you can't say she'd been waiting it. Okay, you have to say she'd been waiting for it. She missed it. She'd been waiting for it for a long time. Okay, you wait for something. You don't wait something. Yes, she'd waiting for it for a long time. Okay, good. Marumi. Waiting for it. Okay, if you just say waiting without for, well, yes, Carlos, that's correct. Julio, that's correct. Okay. So yes, you wait for something. The verb wait can be used without a word like for, but it means something very specific. Okay, I might say, I have been waiting tables for 2 years. Okay, I've been waiting tables. Waiting tables. Not waiting for tables, waiting tables. And that means that I'm a waiter. In other words, I work in a restaurant or a bar or a cafe, and I serve people food and drinks. Okay, I bring food to their table. I literally stand there and wait for them to put their hand up and say, excuse me, and then I go and I serve them. Okay, that's what a waiter does. That's why it's called a waiter, because the waiter waits. They stand there and they wait for you to finish your meal or ask for something. Okay, so you can wait tables. Okay, wait is used as a verb, a transitive verb in that context. But in other contexts, wait is an intransitive verb, which means that you need a preposition before the object. So she's been waiting for. Okay. She missed it. She'd been waiting for it for a long time. She yearned to meet her son. Okay. But the children didn't think like her. Okay, so as I said earlier, be careful about using contractions. If you're writing something like this, don't use contractions, okay? But the children didn't think like her. Fine. They put her in a closet, locked the door, and ignored all her actions. Okay, so it sounds like the children were very mean to this poor little girl. They put her in a closet, locked the door, and ignored all her actions. Now, this part sounds a bit strange. Ignored all her actions. I think what you mean is that the little girl was in the closet and she was banging on the door, let me out, let me out. Something like that. And they just ignored her. Okay. But if you say they ignored all her actions, that sounds a bit strange. Maybe be more specific. So they ignored her cries for help. Something like that. Okay, be a bit more specific about what you mean. So, the children came back the tunnel as the teacher arrived. The children came back the tunnel. Okay. So this is a little unclear because it's not clear that the children went anywhere. Okay, where did the children go? Where did the children go? Sorry, you can't see. Okay, I've got a comment from Carlos, but in formal writing, it's better don't use contractions. Right, yes. In formal writing, it is better that you don't use contractions. That is correct. Okay, so, sorry, you couldn't see the text for a second there. So, it says here, the children came back the tunnel as the teacher arrived. The children came back the tunnel. I really don't know what you're referring to here. What tunnel are you talking about? Where did the children go? You're saying the children came back, but came back from where? Where did they go? Did they go to the tunnel? In which case you would have to say from. The children came back from the tunnel as the teacher arrived. Or do you mean they came back to the tunnel, meaning they were in the tunnel and they've gone away from the tunnel and now they're coming back? Or do you mean they came back through the tunnel? You see? Because, of course, a tunnel is like a tube. Like when you take the train through a mountain, you go through a tunnel. So did they travel from A to B through a tunnel? Or is the tunnel a place that they went to? It's not clear because you haven't mentioned the tunnel before. Okay? So the children came back through the... yeah, we don't know. The children came back the tunnel as the teacher arrived. Okay. As soon as the rain stopped, the gorgeous sun came out. Excellent. Again, you don't really need this comma. As soon as the rain stopped, the gorgeous rain came out. Okay, you don't really need the comma there, but it's okay. Everything the sun brought along was such a magic. Such a magic. Okay. Leave a comment if you've got an idea about how that could be done differently. So what's the mistake here? Such a magic. Everything the sun brought along was such a magic. Leave a comment if you've got an idea about how she could have written that a bit better. Okay, I realize that there's a bit of delay, so it might take some time for me to get your comments, so I'm going to wait for a few minutes. If you've got any idea how you could make that sound a bit better, then please leave a comment. Everything the sun brought along was such a magic. Okay, if you've got any idea what the problem is, then leave a comment. And if you've got an idea about a better way of writing it, then you can leave a comment. Or if you've got any other question about anything at all, leave a comment. So magical, right. So magical sounds a lot better. Yes, I agree. Everything the sun brought along was so magical. Exactly. You see the rather magic. Okay, good. Good. Because magic, you see, Elevik thought of the word magical because magical is a noun. No, sorry, an adjective. Magical is an adjective describing something which seems to be sort of amazing, something like that, as if it's got some magic to it. Whereas magic is generally a noun. Okay, so for example, Harry Potter learned magic. Okay, he went to Hogwarts to learn magic, like learning mathematics, learning engineering, learning magic. Okay, the entertainer performed a magic trick. Okay, a trick of magic. Okay, however, as Carlos has indicated here with his comment, magic can be used as an adjective, very much like the word magical. But I think in this context, magical is better. It sounds better. Because usually when magic is used as an adjective, it means literally involving magic. Okay, so for example, Harry Potter, again, he might have a magic wand. Okay, so his magic wand is just a stick of some wood, willow or something like that, stick of wood, and you call that a magic wand. Wand just means stick, basically. So a magic wand. So a wand that does magic, as opposed to a magical wand. Okay. I mean, you could call it a magical wand, but it sounds a bit clearer to say magic wand. But in this context, it's better to say magical, meaning something like wonderful. Okay. Now, also, Carlos, you use the word rather. Now, rather would make sense. It was rather magic, or rather magical, might sound better. But I think so is better in this context. Firstly, if you look at what Mai originally wrote, she used the word such. Okay, and the words such and so kind of mean the same thing, don't they? They're just used in a slightly different grammatical context. Such is used with countable nouns, like yeah, with countable nouns, like such a big car. So is used grammatically a bit differently, but they kind of convey the same idea. So I think that Elevik had the right idea by using so, because it's like he's trying to capture what Mai was trying to say, but he's doing it a little bit better than she did it. Okay, just more technically correct. So yes, I would say so magical. Yeah, regarding the word rather means well, let me see. Rather can mean a little or a lot, depending on the context. It's just that the word rather is a little bit, it's not very expressive. It's not very expressive, okay? So here I think that my has tried to be very expressive, hence she's using magic or magical. So saying rather magical it sounds a bit funny, almost a bit ironic, because magical is a very expressive word, but rather is a very restrained, yes, a very restrained, reserved sort of word, okay? So it sounds almost like a joke. Anyway, those made the children resilient. Those made the children resilient. What is those? What is this those that you're referring to? Those made the children resilient. This is very unclear. I don't know what you're talking about here. What is those? Those what? Those made the children resilient. Rains, avalanches, thunders seemed not to exist before. Yeah, so this is really not clear. Now, rains. Better just to write rain, okay? Rain, because rain is a noun, not rains. Rains is more like a verb, like it rains every day, okay? But rain is a noun. Avalanches, thunders. Now, this is a mistake, isn't it? Thunder is uncountable, okay? You can't have one thunder, two thunders, three thunders, okay? Uncountable. It's just thunder, like noise. Well, actually, a lot of words in English can be countable or uncountable depending on the context. But thunder is uncountable, okay? So here saying thunders, as if one thunder, two thunders, three thunders, that doesn't really work, okay? So better to write thunder. Yes, those made the children resilient. Don't know what that means. Rain, avalanches. Apparently there's a spelling mistake there. Not sure what it is. Oops. There you go, avalanches. Thunders, so yeah, thunder is what you mean. Seemed not to exist before. Not to exist before. Who can think of a better way to write this? This is a bit advanced, okay? This is a bit advanced, okay? So I'll be quite impressed if you can think of how to write this a bit differently. Seemed not to exist before. Okay, who's got an idea about a better way of writing that? Okay, leave a comment if you think you can rewrite that little that end part of the sentence and make it sound a bit better. Now, Carlos, I see you've left another comment. Maybe those is referring to the magical stuff. Well, everything the sun brought along was so magical, and it made the children resilient. Yeah, maybe you're right. It's just the word resilient. You see, resilient means something like strong. And usually if we're saying that something made a person resilient, it's probably because it was a bad thing, okay? So, for example, we have a saying in English, which is whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, okay? So when I see this word resilient, that makes me think that she's talking about something bad. Those bad things made the children resilient. But, of course, Mai is a student of English. She's a sort of intermediate speaker, so maybe she's misused the word resilient. Or she just doesn't appreciate the implication of that word for a native English speaker. So maybe you're right, Carlos. Maybe what she means is that these good experiences, these magical experiences, uplifted the children. Maybe though maybe she means it made the children happier, something like that. It made the children happier, and these things seemed, yeah. So so I don't want to give the game away. Hadn't existed before. There we go. Yes, that's a lot better. So those magical experiences made the children. So let's put in here magical experiences or something like that. I don't know. Made the children, I would say, happier, basically. Rain, avalanches, thunder. Don't forget the and. Whenever you're listing things, you have to have and before the last one. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, even if it's just 2, 1 and 2. Okay, seemed, what was it? Seemed not had seemed hadn't existed before. Right? Yes. Seemed. You could say something like seemed like they hadn't existed before or hadn't existed. Okay, you don't really need the word before, but if there's nothing wrong with that. You can put that in there as well. Seemed like they hadn't existed. But yes, the point is that we're using the past perfect. Okay. Not had existed before. Yeah, so I would have written something like that. Those magical experiences made the children happier. Rain, avalanches, and thunder seemed, this is what I would have written, not to have existed before. Okay, again, you don't really need the word before, but there's definitely no problem with including it. It's good to include it. Yes. Good, excellent. Yes, Carlos, well done. Yes, indeed. Past perfect. So, this day would be all the summer wanted to make up for the disappearance of over 7 years. This day would be all the summer wanted to make up for the disappearance of over 7 years. I know what you mean, Mai, but this particular sentence sounds a bit strange. All the summer wanted. Well, the summer doesn't really want anything. Maybe what you mean is needed. Okay? All the summer needed. Now, you see, it's a bit different using needed and wanted. Because if you use want, it implies that the summer is like a conscious being that wants things. But you can use needed to mean something like, I might say, for example, my car needs a wash. Okay? My car needs a wash. In other words, I should wash my car. It's dirty. I need a haircut. Well, that's a bit different because I'm a person. I can say I want a haircut as well. But I could say, for example, my coffee needs sugar. Or my chips need salt. Okay, they don't want salt. My coffee doesn't want sugar, but it needs it because we can use need in that way to mean it would benefit from my point of view. I would prefer it if the coffee had more sugar, you see. I hope that's clear. So yes, be careful about that. You can't just use need and want interchangeably. Yes, so needed is what you meant, I think. This day would be all the summer needed to make up for the disappearance of over 7 years. Now, this is a bit funny. You say the disappearance of over 7 years. When you say this, it sounds a bit like you're saying that 7 years disappeared. Okay? Now, that's a very strange thing. 7 years just disappeared. How does that happen? How does 7 years disappear? 7 years can't disappear. What you mean is that the summer disappeared for 7 years. There was no summer for 7 years. Okay? But that's not really what you wrote. You see, this day would be all the summer needed to make up for the you see, you said the disappearance. But what you should have written was, well, who can leave a comment? Leave a comment if you know how to correct this. Okay, instead of the disappearance, what should Mai have written there? Okay, leave a comment if you've got an idea how we could make that a bit better. Okay. In the meantime, I'll look at what's already been written in the comments. Carlos says, could I say shall instead of should? Let's see. I'm not sure what you're referring to, if you're referring to something in the text. I'm not sure. But shall, in general, shall can be used like should. Yes, absolutely. Okay. But you'd need to be a bit more specific. If you've got a specific sentence that you want me to check, then go ahead and write that sentence in the comments. But anyway, someone leave a comment if you've got an idea how we could make this sound a bit better. This day would be all the summer needed to make up for the disappearance of over 7 years. Okay, someone leave a comment. What is the mistake here? How could we make this better? Someone leave a comment. This day would be all the summer needed to make up for the disappearance of over 7 years. At the moment, it sounds like 7 years just disappeared. Where did these 7 years go? Okay. It's like time travel, but that's not what she meant. I'm just waiting for a comment. All right, I read would and I thought it was should. Okay. If you can't think of an answer, well, I'll tell you the answer. I think that what she meant was something like its disappearance. Okay, because she's talking about the summer itself. What she means is the summer disappeared for over 7 years. So this day would be all the summer needed to make up for its disappearance of over 7 years. Okay. I hope that's clear. No one else seems to have commented on that. For over 7 years. Well, yeah, that's what she's... Well, okay, it's of over 7 years. Yeah, maybe for 7 years would be better. Yes. This day would be all the summer needed to make up for its disappearance for over 7 years. But to be honest, they're both correct. For over 7 years, of over 7 years. Actually, they're both correct. But yes, its disappearance, because what we're saying is that the summer, disappeared for over 7 years. We're not saying that 7 years disappeared. You see, if you say the disappearance of 7 years, it makes it sound like 7 years disappeared. But what we're trying to say is that the summer disappeared for 7 years, or had a disappearance of 7 years. Okay. So it sounds very strange to me as a native English speaker when it's the way that she originally wrote it. Okay. So let's get back to it. Suddenly the sky darkened into midnight in a flash. Suddenly the sky darkened into midnight in a flash. Well, the problem here is that she said suddenly and in a flash. Okay. So yes, Elevic has written, I would have written disappearance of the sun for over 7 years. Yeah, exactly. So you might remember that earlier I was saying how a lot of mistakes that people who are learning English make, in fact, I would say almost every mistake that people make in their grammar, come down to trying to say something 2 different ways at the same time. Okay, because there's always more than one way of saying something. And so I think sometimes learners of English will try to take 2 different ways of saying something and sort of mix them together. But you can't do that, I'm afraid. So here, suddenly the sky darkened into midnight in a flash. Okay, suddenly and in a flash mean the same thing, don't they? In a flash. Okay, like like that, like the flash of a camera. In a flash, suddenly. So if you use both, it's confusing because it makes it seem like they're two different things. So there's a suddenly, and then there's this other thing, which is a flash. So it disappeared suddenly, and there's a flash. It's confusing, you see. So better just to write, in a flash, the sky darkened into midnight. Also, I would be careful about using the expression in a flash, because in a flash can just mean suddenly, but it can also mean literally in a flash. Okay, a flash is a bright burst of light. So especially here, because she's used suddenly and in a flash, it makes me think there was actually a flash of some sort. Like maybe there was an explosion. Okay, if that's what she means, then fine. Okay, we'll find out. Maybe that is what she means. But I don't think so. Suddenly, the sky darkened into midnight. Now, midnight is a strange choice of words. Sorry, you can't see. Midnight has a specific meaning, doesn't it? Midnight doesn't just mean night. It doesn't just mean dark. Midnight means something very particular. Okay? It has a specific meaning. Midnight means, okay, midnight means 12 a.m. That's midnight. Suddenly the sky darkened into 12 a.m. Okay? So be careful about that, Mai. It sounds a bit strange to say it darkened into midnight. I think what you mean is it darkened into night. Okay? Their smile vanished away. Okay, so this is a pretty easy one. Someone leave a comment. What's the mistake there? Their smile disappeared. Okay, that's easy, but I'm sure you all know what the answer is, but leave a comment. I'm going to read on because there's a bit of delay, so I don't want to spend ages waiting for your comments to show. So their smile vanished away. Now, you don't really need to say vanished away, because vanish means to go away. Okay, so you don't need to say vanish away, just vanish. Okay, their smile, okay, mistake there, obviously. Their smile vanished. Okay, vanish, you don't need away. All the children ran back toward the underground house. Okay, that's fine. Now, here's a point relating to the difference between British and American English. Americans will tend to say toward, but British people will tend to write towards. Okay? Similarly, well, British people will write things like forwards, backwards. Okay? But Americans will write forward and backward. Okay? So personally, I'm British, and I would encourage you to use towards as opposed to toward, but it really doesn't matter. It's not important. Okay. Smiles, right. So Carlos has commented smiles. Yes, of course. They're smiles. Okay. It's not one smile. We're talking about lots of children, all with their own unique little smiles. All the children ran back towards the underground house. The underground house. Okay, this is fine. It's very descriptive. Underground house is a lot more descriptive than tunnel. Okay, I know what you mean if you say an underground house, but maybe you could use a word which means an underground house. Maybe something like a bunker, something like that. Okay, I don't know. You know, there is a word bunker which means basically an underground house. However, the word bunker might not be perfect here, because bunker implies something like a bomb shelter, you know, the kind of place where you would hide if like these unfortunate people in Ukraine at the moment, probably anyone who's got a bunker will be hiding in the bunker when the bombs are falling on Ukraine. Anyway, so where are we? Suddenly the sky darkened. Yes. So rains were coming back. Yeah, okay, rains were coming back. Maybe the rain would sound better. The rain. The rain was coming back. Something like that. Okay. Forever. Full stop. That's not, you see, you can't just write one word and a full stop. That doesn't really work, does it? You can't really do that. Maybe, you see, again, maybe in the original text, it says something like that. But you've got to be careful because the original text is written in quite a poetic way. And so sometimes writers will break the rules of grammar for poetical, artistic reasons. But for you, if you're just summarizing that piece of writing for an IELTS test, then you shouldn't do things like that, okay? Keep your grammar very simple and correct. So you can't just write one word forever. At the time, they just remembered that Margot was still at the closet room. At the closet room? What would be a better way of writing that? Someone leave a comment. What would be a better way to write that? At the closet room. Okay. At the time. Also, at the time sounds a bit strange here. Okay. So this is a little hard to explain. Let me think about it. At the time. So at the time is usually used to talk about more sort of general circumstances. So I might say something like, I met my wife 10 years ago. At the time, I was working in a bank. Okay, I met my wife 10 years ago. At the time, I was working in a bank. So at the time is used to describe my circumstances at the time, my circumstances. And within those circumstances, I met my wife 10 years ago. Okay. However, what Mai has done here is the opposite. She's done the opposite. Okay. So what she means is they remembered that Margot was in the closet. At that time, the rains were coming back. Okay, that would be more correct. But yes, saying at the time sounds a bit strange in this context. Maybe say something like, at that moment. At that moment. Not the moment, but at that moment. Right then. At that moment, okay? So at that moment, they just remembered. You probably don't need just. If you say they just remembered, that implies that it had already happened. Okay. So just say they remembered. At that moment, they remembered that Margot was still at the closet room. Okay, so what's the mistake here? Let's look at your comments. Okay, so Carlos has written in. Yeah, I would say in the closet. And I would not say in the closet room. Not in the closet room. In the closet. Okay? Because a closet isn't... There's no such thing as a closet room. As far as I know, there's no such thing as a closet room. What's a closet room? Okay? A closet is a cupboard that you keep clothes and things like that in. Okay? But the closet is not a room. And a closet is usually found in a bedroom. Okay, so closet is in a bedroom, not a closet room. Okay. Okay, so in the closet. Okay. So rains were coming back. At that moment, they remembered that Margot was still in the closet. Okay. They immediately went back to the room with solemn and pale faces. Good, that's excellent. Last scene, they unlocked the door and you see, silly mistake there. And let Margot out, yeah. Now, last scene, comma, they unlocked the door. instead of saying last seen, comma, oops, I would say something like in the end, something like that, or finally. Okay, you could say in the last scene, but simply saying last scene sounds a bit strange to me. Okay, sorry, you can't really see that, can you? How do I fix that? Yeah, last scene, they unlocked the door and let Margot out. Yeah, maybe something like in the last scene, or in the end, something like that, or finally. Finally, they unlocked the door. Again, don't really need the comment there. Finally, they unlocked the door and let Margot out. Okay, good, excellent. Lastly, yes, you could write lastly. Okay, got a lot of comments there from Carlos. I hope everyone else is still awake, still with me. Okay. So if you've joined halfway through, then please leave a comment just with your name. Okay, just introduce yourself. It's nice for me to see who's there. Okay, so anybody who's joined and hasn't left a comment already, then please leave a comment just with your name, just to say hello. Okay. So moving on, we're going to move on to Carlos's text. Okay, Carlos has been chatting. Carlos Guillermo. Oh, I've met Carlos before, and he doesn't go by Carlos, do you? It's you prefer Guillermo, is that right? I can't remember. Okay, Miss Lynn, first time joining your live. Is it more like a correction of subscribers' work? Yes, that's exactly right. So last week, a couple of my subscribers sent me some written work that they'd done in English, and we've just been going through it. So we've just finished going through a piece of work by one of my subscribers called Mai, who's a lady from Vietnam. And we're about to start looking at a piece from Carlos, who you can see commenting there. I keep on calling him Carlos, but I know that he doesn't like to be called Carlos. He prefers Guille or Guillermo. Okay. Yes, it's this Latin naming thing of having too many bloody names. Okay, keep it simple. John Francis Colt, that's my name. Simple. Okay, so hello, Julio or Julio. Nice to meet you. Okay, so let's look at Carlos's work. Sorry, Guillermo's work. I'll get it eventually. Okay, so let me see. So Guillermo. Hello, John. Thank you so much for reviewing my grammar. I really want to improve my writing. I want to learn how to write essays. Owing, I'm going to do the IELTS test, and also I fancy to learn how to write a narrative stuff. Okay, good. A bit of a long sentence there. I want to learn how to write essays. Owing, I'm going to do. Okay. So, Guillermo, what I like here is that I noticed this in your writing. You're taking risks, and that's good, because that's how you get better. You're trying to use expressions and vocabulary that are a bit more advanced. So owing is a good example of that. So in English, we often say owing to, meaning simply because of. Okay, so it can sound quite formal, quite official. You might be watching the news, and it might say, or let's say you're at the train station. Okay, you're at the train station and you're waiting for a train, and you hear an announcement over the loudspeaker, and it says, the train has been delayed owing to a malfunction, or the train has been delayed owing to bad weather. Okay, something like that. This happens in England all the time. In London, often they'll say the train has been delayed owing to leaves on the track. Okay, so in the winter, leaves fall from the trees and they go onto the track, and then the train can't go. Okay, that's how bad our system is in London. So owing to means because of. So here you've almost got it right, but it doesn't sound, it's not quite right. Okay. Owing, I'm going to do. So here you have to say something like owing to the fact that. Okay, it's a bit long, but that's what you would have to do here. Owing to the fact that I'm going to do the IELTS test. Okay, of course it would be a lot easier just to say because, if I can spell it. Okay, because I'm going to do the IELTS test. And also I fancy to learn how to write a narrative stuff. Okay, so firstly, good use of the word fancy. Okay, for those who don't know, fancy is a very British word. In this context, it means to desire, to want. Okay, British people often use the word fancy to talk about romantic interest. So you fancy a girl, or she fancies you, meaning she's attracted to you, she's romantically interested in you. Okay, but in this context it just means that you want something. Okay, so this is good. I fancy to learn. Yeah, that's fine. You could have said I fancy learning. Okay, I fancy learning how to write. Okay, as opposed to I fancy to learn. Now this part sounds a bit wrong. So someone leave a comment. What's wrong with a narrative stuff? Either give me an example of how you would have written it better, or explain to me the grammatical problem here with a narrative stuff. What is the problem? Okay. Carlos says, Guillermo says, I don't know why I wrote that. I want to learn how to write. This is going to do. Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean about the Oh, okay, right. You mean this Yes, exactly. That's exactly the problem. You see, because stuff, the word stuff, is uncountable. Okay, uncountable. So you cannot have a stuff because a means one. If you say a stuff, you're literally counting it. You're saying it's one. Okay, so you can't have that. It's right, narrative stuff. Good. So narrative is an adjective here. Okay, my personal goals. I consider that goals are an utterly important part of every human being. We need our own motivations for our lives and have reasons to get out of bed every morning. Owing to this fact, okay, that's good. Very good. Owing to this fact, I've always valued and taken way seriously when it comes to setting myself personal goals. Okay. So, I consider that goals are an utterly important part. I consider that goals. So, good. Again, I like the fact that you're pushing yourself to do things in a more advanced way. Rather than just saying, I think, you've said, I consider. Okay? And but you have to be a little bit more careful here. Instead of saying, I consider that goals, okay, you could have written, I think that goals. That would be correct. I think that goals are important. But if you're using the word consider, you have to do it a bit differently, okay? If someone can leave a comment explaining how it should be done, I consider. So if we're going to use the word consider, someone leave a comment suggesting a better way of doing that. So we want to use the word consider, but we can't just say, I consider that goals are utterly important. Someone leave a comment. How can we make this a bit better? Guillermo, if you can think of how you could make that better, then by all means leave a comment. But anyone else who's got an idea, leave a comment. If you've got any other questions, anything else you want to say, or you just want to say hello, leave a comment. I consider that goals are an utterly important part of every human being. Someone leave a comment. I consider that goals are an utterly important part of every human being. Doesn't sound quite right. I'll give you a clue. Okay, this is, I'm going to use some grammatical terminology here, but the word consider is a transitive verb. Okay? Consider is a transitive verb. That means that you don't need a preposition. Okay? So you just, you can have consider and then you have the object of the verb. Okay? Or the object. Okay. So Guillermo has written, I don't need that. Without that, right. Okay, basically that's the right answer, but that's not the complete answer. You need to give me a bit more than that, okay? But you're on the right track, okay? So if we look at the text, you're definitely on the right track. So if we can remove that, but it still doesn't sound 100% right. I consider goals are an utterly important part. That still doesn't sound right, does it? So how can we make that better? I know there's a bit of a delay between you writing the comments and me receiving them, so I'm sorry about that. So has anyone else got any idea how we can make this a bit better? I consider goals, so we've corrected it a bit because we've removed that. We don't need that because it's a transitive verb. I consider goals, like I eat food. You don't need to say I eat to food. I eat of food. I eat, with food or something. It's I eat food. Okay? That's a transitive verb. Whereas I go to work, well, now go in that context is an intransitive verb, you see? So, okay. So, Elevik, I consider goals to be an utterly important part. Yes, that's correct. Very good. I consider goals to be, that's exactly right. Well done. I consider goals to be an utterly important part of every human being. Okay. Now here, I would use a stronger punctuation, a stronger form of punctuation than a comma. You could use a full stop. Okay. You could use a full stop. But if you want, you could use something like a colon. We use colons when we're going to explain what we mean. Okay, when we're going to elaborate. Okay. Colon is a really useful piece of punctuation. Okay. So I consider goals to be an utterly important part of every human being. And then you explain what you mean. You see, we need our own motivations. Yes, our own motivations or motivation. Okay, but yeah, it's debatable because really motivation is a mass noun, uncountable. But people do use it as a countable noun as well, meaning specific things that motivate you. Okay, so that one's okay. We need our own motivations for our lives and have reasons to get out of bed every morning. Now, I know what you mean. You said we need our own motivations. We need our own motivations. So if we just move this for a second. Okay, we'll just get rid of this for a second, just so that you can see the problem. We need our own motivations and have reasons to get out of bed. We need our own motivations and have reasons to get out of bed. Okay, so can anyone see what the mistake is here? Can anyone see what the mistake is? Okay, this is a bit tricky. This is a bit of an advanced point. We need our own motivations and have reasons to get out of bed every morning. Okay, if you've got some idea what the mistake is or how to make it better, then please leave a comment. This is a bit difficult. Okay, and if you've got any other comments about anything at all, or you just want to say hello, then please leave a comment. We need our own motivations and have reasons to get out of bed every morning. Still waiting for a comment. Well, hopefully some of you can work out what the problem is, but I'm going to explain it because I don't want to wait too long. So the thing is, you said we need our own motivations, but can you say this? What you mean is we need reasons to get out of bed. That's what you mean. So if we just delete this, this is what you meant. We need reasons to get out of bed. Okay. But the way you wrote it, it's not clear. We need our own motivations for our lives and have reasons. So it would have been better if you didn't have the word have. Okay, we need our own motivations for our lives and reasons. Okay, we need 1, our own motivations for our lives, and 2, reasons to get out of bed. You see, we need reasons to get out of bed every morning. Okay, you could have written this: to have. Okay, we need to have reasons, but you can't just say we need have reasons. Right, Guillermo's written without have. Yes, exactly. Exactly. We need our own motivations for our lives and reasons to get out of bed every morning. Good. So with this kind of sentence, you see, it's good that you're pushing yourself and you're writing long sentences like this, but you have to keep track of what you're writing. Make sure if you're writing something like this, that everything relates back to the original verb. We need. What do we need? We need our own motivations. We need reasons. Okay? Good. Now here, again, you need better punctuation. I would put a full stop here. Okay, you've already written quite a lot. Don't make your sentences too long. I consider goals to be an utterly important part of every human being. We need our own motivations for our lives and reasons to get out of bed every morning. Okay, new sentence. Owing to this fact, I've always valued and taken way seriously. Taken way seriously? That's not clear. I don't know what you mean. So, Guillermo, if you can explain what you mean, then please leave a comment. I've always valued and taken way seriously when it... Okay, no capital letter there, please. When it comes to setting myself personal goals. Maybe what you mean is I've always valued... Owing to this fact, I've always valued... Valued what? What have you valued? Okay, this is not clear. Okay. Also, Guillermo, you've got to be very careful about repeating yourself. This is a problem that I've seen a lot in, especially in academic writing. Okay, so I've edited and reviewed a lot of academic essays, academic papers written by university students. And this is true for native English speakers as well, not just foreigners, okay? A lot of students will repeat themselves over and over and over again, okay? And here, that's what you've done. You've repeated yourself. You've said, I consider goals to be important. That's why I take them seriously. But take seriously and value kind of mean the same thing. So it's like you're saying, I think goals are important. That's why I think goals are important. You see the problem there? I think goals are important, and for that reason, I think goals are important. Okay, so you've got to be careful about that. Don't repeat yourself. So when I was 22, sorry, can't see. When I was 22, I created a personal method to set personal goals. A personal method to set personal goals. Maybe repeating personal is a bit, is not ideal, but it's okay. And again, punctuation. Just put a full stop there. This method is about a chart. This method is about a chart. I don't think the method is about anything. Maybe this method involves a chart, something like that. This method involves a chart, or simply this method is a chart. Okay, this method is a chart, or involves a chart that forces you to describe what you want to achieve. And this chart is made up of 4 phases. So here, again, I would start a new sentence. This chart is made up of 4 phases. 4 phases. I don't think that that's the right word, really, because a chart is a visual thing. A phase is more a period of time. Okay, so a chart is made up of 4 periods of time. That doesn't really work. 4 sections, maybe, is what you meant. Okay, so I can see some comments here. I was trying to say, like, take away, to say a lot, but I think used the wrong phrasal verb. Let me take a look at that. Owing to this fact, I've always valued and taken away seriously. But still, it doesn't make sense, though. Taken away seriously when it comes to setting myself goals. I'm not sure what you mean there. Anyway, so moving on. Yeah, phases implies a period of time. In each phase, you must write. Well, maybe you're right. Maybe the problem was with the word chart, and it's not clear what kind of chart it is. But anyway, let's read on. So this chart is made up of 4 phases. So again, I would use different punctuation here. You could use a colon because you're explaining yourself. This chart is made up of 4 phases. In each phase, don't need the comma there. In each phase, you must write essential and truly ideas. I'm not sure what you mean there. You must write essential and truly ideas. So you must be thoroughly honest with yourself when writing thoughts. In each phase, you must write essential and truly ideas. So you must be thoroughly honest with yourself when writing thoughts. Yeah, this part is a bit unclear. Okay, so you might want to rewrite that. In the first phase, you have to write your dreams. Again, punctuation. There's nothing wrong with having a full stop and starting a new sentence. Okay, it's perfectly okay. Here, dreams are understood as long-term goals. Okay, good. In the first phase, you have to write your dreams. Here, dreams are understood as long-term goals. Again, punctuation. Okay. Once your dreams are written, you have to write the actions you should do to reach your dreams. Okay. Again, punctuation, maybe a colon again. This is the most important part because is here where you set yourself the short-term goals, which are skills or knowledge you need, la, 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 la. Yeah, you see the mistake here. This is a very common mistake for people who speak Spanish or other Romance languages, okay? Yeah, Spanish people make that mistake a lot. So leave a comment if you know what the mistake is there. Okay, I hope some other people are watching, not just Guillermo. I know we've been going on for 2 hours now. So if you haven't fallen asleep, tell me what the problem is here. This is the most important part because is here where you set yourself the short-term goals. Okay, someone leave a comment. Elevik, if you're still there, if you haven't gone off to have your lunch or something like that, then leave a comment. Anyone else there, leave a comment. Miss Lynn, haven't had any comments from you, Miss Lynn. So time that you left a comment. Okay, what's the mistake? Just underline that. What's the mistake here? This is the most important part, because is here where you set yourself the short-term goals, which are skills or knowledge you need to learn in order to be cut out for your dreams. Is here. What is the mistake? Because this is where. Okay, excellent. Yes, this is where. Or you could have written, this is the most important part because it is here. It is here where you set yourself the short-term goals. Okay, that would be fine. It is here. I think that this mistake, which is very common among Spanish speakers and other speakers of Romance languages, Italian, Portuguese, I think the problem is that the word is sounds a lot like the word it's, you see. And native English speakers will often say things like, it's here where you set yourself goals. And if you're not, if you're a learner of English, you might not realize that we're saying it's. You might think that we're saying is. Okay, but they're not the same. Okay, it is. But yes, you could say, because this is where you set yourself goals. Okay, you have a choice. So it's here where, or this is where you set yourself the short-term goals, which are skills or knowledge you need to learn, or skills or knowledge you need to learn in order to be cut out for your dreams. So yes, I like that you've tried to use the expression cut out for. Okay, that's very good. Again, you're pushing yourself to use new vocabulary. That's very good. This is how you get better. Okay, and yeah, that's basically correct, the way you've done it. Basically correct. The thing is that we generally use cut out, to be cut out for something, to talk about someone's nature, okay, their personality, rather than their skills. So it sounds a little bit strange to say he learned how to be cut out for this job. Okay, it doesn't really work that way. Being cut out for something means having the right kind of personality for that job. Okay, so you might say something like, he tried really hard, but he's just not cut out for this kind of job. Okay, he tried really hard to be, I don't know, he tried really hard to be a soldier, but he's not cut out for military life. He's just the wrong kind of person. He's just not the right kind of personality for that kind of job. Okay, so that's how we generally use cut out for. Okay, you see, it's a metaphor. Imagine a piece of paper, and on the piece of paper you draw a picture of a man standing there like this, like a simple drawing of man. Then you get a pair of scissors and you cut it out. Okay, that's what we're thinking of when we say cut out. So this is your form. This is fixed. That's how you're cut out. Okay, something like that. Okay, so this is where you set yourself the short-term goals, which are skills or knowledge you need. I don't think you should have said the short-term goals, because you're not talking about some specific short-term goals. You're talking generally about short-term goals. This is where you set yourself short-term goals, and then you're explaining what you mean by short-term goals, okay? Which are skills or knowledge you need to learn. Yes, skills. Okay, so skills you learn. You definitely learn skills. Knowledge. Do you learn knowledge? Interesting. It sounds okay. I suppose knowledge is something you learn. But it sounds a bit strange to talk about learning knowledge. Um, it's hard to explain, but it sounds a bit odd. But it's no big problem. It's fine. Okay. Anyway, let's move on. The third phase is about good habits. Those behaviors you shall add to your daily routine, such as waking up earlier or not skipping any mealtime. Thus, you are more conscious about what you should add to your life. The third phase is about good habits. Again, here maybe use a colon because you're explaining what you mean. When you elaborate, when you explain what you mean, you can use a colon. The third phase is about good habits. Those behaviors you shall add. Spelling. Okay, so here, by the way, this spelling that you've used is the American spelling. British people will spell it like this. Okay, those behaviors you shall add to your daily routine. And yes, shall is correct. That's fine. You shall add, but you maybe should would be a little bit better because should implies that there's it would be right for you to add them, and it would be wrong for you to not add them. There's a sense of right and wrong here. Yes, you should do it. Whereas shall just means that you're going to do it, whether or not it's correct. Okay? So maybe should would be a bit better. Those behaviors you should add to your daily routine, such as waking up earlier or not skipping any meal time. I would say not skipping any meals. Okay? Rather than any meal time. Okay? Not skipping any meals. Okay, so those behaviors you should add to your daily routine, such as waking up earlier or not skipping any meals. Again, punctuation. You know, just try full stop. Thus, you are more conscious about what you should add to your life. So it's good that you're using the word thus. Excellent. You're pushing yourself. The third phase is about good habits. Thus, you're more conscious. I'm not sure if thus is really the right word here. Thus is similar in meaning to therefore, something like that. But yeah, I mean, it sounds okay. The third phase is about good habits. Those behaviors you should add to your daily routine, such as waking up earlier or not skipping any meals. Thus, you are more conscious about what you should add to your life. Yes. Well, okay. Well, I'll leave that. That's acceptable. So let's move on. So, finally, in the fourth phase, again, you must be utterly honest with yourself, because here you will write about the toxic behaviors that you must cut off. Yeah. Finally, in the fourth phase, again, if you're going to use commas, I would generally advise that you use them in pairs. So here's one, here's the other. Finally, comma, in the fourth phase, comma, again, you must be utterly honest with yourself, because here you will write about the toxic behaviors that you must cut off. Okay, that's fine. So following these steps, I can focus on that build. Toward. So as I was saying earlier in regards to Mai's piece of writing, Americans tend to say toward, but British people tend to say towards. Okay, it doesn't really matter. They're both fine, but I would use towards because I'm British. So following these steps, I can focus on that. Yeah, here, this is unclear because I assume what you mean is something like that, and then to build towards. So you're listing different things that you can do. Following these steps, I can focus on that. But what is that? That's the question. What is that? Do you mean cutting off toxic behaviors? Is that what you mean? This is unclear. Build towards my long and short-term goals. Good. Being aware of what I should do in order to achieve all of them. Yeah, okay. This is also a good, reliable way. So here, use a comma. Because when you're listing several adjectives, you should use a comma like that. This is a good, reliable way to set my personal SMART goals. I don't know, I'm not familiar with this this acronym or initialism. You've not mentioned it before. Okay, this is new information in your document. Anyway, regarding setting myself personal goals, I would say that I try to do it every time when I'm feeling down. Okay, every time when I'm feeling down. Who can someone leave a comment and explain or give rewrite this. Write this how you would write it. Every time when I'm feeling down. Okay, every time when I'm feeling down. What is wrong with this? Someone leave a comment about how you would do that differently, or explain what the problem is. Okay, every time when I'm feeling down. What is the mistake there? Okay, I'm going to wait for. Right. Yes, I meant the toxic behaviors. Good. Okay, that's clear. So yes, there's a bit of delay between when you write the comments and when I get the comments. Okay. But yes, here it says, regarding setting myself personal goals, I would say that I try to do it every time when I'm feeling down or frustrated. So what's the mistake there? Okay, someone leave a comment. Every time when I'm feeling down or frustrated. Someone leave a comment. I would say that I try to do it every time when I'm feeling down or frustrated. Still waiting for a comment. There's a bit of a delay. Well, I'll explain the problem. So every time when I'm feeling down, how about just every time I'm feeling down or frustrated? Okay, or just write when. So as I've said several times already, usually when someone who's learning English, right, without when, Carlos has commented, Guillermo, sorry, has commented without when. Right, so usually when someone who's learning English makes a mistake with their grammar, or with their syntax or their vocabulary, it's because you're trying to say the same thing in two different ways. Okay? So you can say every time, let's see, let me think of a good example. Every time I drink coffee, I add milk. Every time I drink coffee, I add milk to my coffee. Every time I drink coffee, I add milk. Okay? Or I could say, when I drink coffee, I add milk. Every time I drink coffee, I add milk. When I drink coffee, I add milk. These two sentences mean exactly the same thing. Okay? Every time and when, in this context, mean exactly the same thing. Every time when. No, now you're just trying to do both at the same time. You can't do that. Every time when I drink coffee. No, every time I drink coffee, or when I drink coffee. Okay? So, let's go back to the text. Regarding setting myself personal goals, I would say that when I try to do it when I'm feeling down or frustrated, or every time I'm feeling down or frustrated, having existential problems, not knowing what to do next with my life. So at those moments is, you see, you made the same mistake. At those moments is when I use my method. Well, I suppose that's acceptable. So at those moments is when, but it would sound better to say, so those moments are when. Okay, so those moments are when I use my method to put myself together. Those moments are when I use my method. Okay, what you wrote was, so at those moments is when. So again, you're kind of trying to say the same thing in two different ways at the same time. Because you could have said, so at those moments, I use my method to put myself together. At those moments, I use my method to put myself together. That's correct. Okay? Or you could have said, so those moments are when I use my method to put myself together. You see? But you can't do both at the same time. Okay. Currently, my most important goals are related to my English journey. Excellent. You don't need that comma. Okay? It's okay, but it's not necessary. Currently, my most important goals are related to my English journey. I'm doing my hardest. I'm doing my hardest. Yeah, maybe working my hardest or something like that. So yeah, doing my hardest doesn't sound quite right. I'm working my hardest, maybe, to keep up this process of learning input that I've been having for a while. This process of learning input. Yeah, that's a little unclear. Maybe you just mean this process of learning or learning process. Okay, this learning process. That's an expression that we often use in English, learning process. So I've been working my hardest to keep up this learning process that I've been having for a while. Yeah, you don't really have a process. You may be in a process. So I've been doing my hardest or working my hardest to keep up this learning process that I've been in for a while, because you've been in the process of learning rather than having the process of learning. Even though sometimes I want to give up, you can see, let me just check that. Can you see that? Hold on, just resize this a bit. Okay. So even though sometimes I want to give up, I push myself and bite the bullet. Good. Excellent. Bite the bullet. Good good choice of phrase. Bite the bullet. Here I would use more punctuation. Semicolon. Okay? Because it's like two different sentences which you kind of want to put together into one sentence. Even though sometimes I want to give up, you could use a comma there. I push myself and bite the bullet. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to reach my English goals. Yeah, very good. Okay. So bite the bullet is a nice expression. A bullet, of course, is a thing that you fire from a gun. And I think the expression comes from the old days of a battlefield surgery. So imagine you're a soldier in, say, the Napoleonic Wars, you know, 200-300 years ago, and you're injured badly, and the doctor, the surgeon, has to perform surgery on you. He needs to cut off your leg or something like that. And so there's no way to deal with the pain. So you get a bullet and you bite the bullet, and that helps you deal with the pain. Okay, I think that's where the expression comes from. Anyway, we'll wrap it up there. It's been a very long one today, over 2 hours. I hope you found that very interesting, and I will try to do this stream the same time every Saturday. So that's midday, 12 p.m. UK time. At the moment in the UK, it's summertime. That's GMT +1. So if you have some English that you've written that you want to share with me, then follow the link in the description and you can share a document with me and I'll go through it next time. Or if you want to share with me a recording of yourself speaking English, it can be an audio recording or a video recording, then share that with me and I will comment on your pronunciation. Okay? And if you're really serious about improving your English, particularly your pronunciation, then follow the link to my online school, and you can access my courses there, and you can even get one-to-one lessons with me if you want. You can email me about that. But yep, it's been fun, and I'll see you again next